Chapter 5, Sensory Blocks in the Firing Order and Their Effect. What you know to this point of reading human body language based upon the holographic human transformation theory. The different human senses and their locations in the 6 different areas of the body is sectioned out on the holographic human map. Each function, data compression program, and element of each human sense, sound, deleting by sameness, values, ethics, meanings. Sight, deleting by difference. Ideas, reason, concepts. Touch, distorting by amplification. Relationships, energy, actions, intuitions, distorting by diminishing. Taste, beliefs about character. Generalized by sameness. Smell, beliefs about strategies, generalized by difference. Draw the holographic human body map and place the senses, their primary questions, the sense functions, data compression programs, and some of the elements on the map. Identify your firing order on the map and memorize this information. What do you know about human beings just based upon this information? Sound. Human values, ethics, and meanings are automatically deleted from conscious access and the program models once they become the same, repeated many times. The effect of this is that we can hear a same value, ethics, or meaning and not recognize it as the same as our program, and therefore not hear or recognize what's truly being said or presented by other people or in our own lives. Sight. Deletes by difference, so ideas, reasons, and concepts that are different than our own or what we already know are deleted and not considered valid. These have to be repeated and become the same for conscious to perceive them. Touch distorts relationships by amplifying their effects. Energy distorts action and intuitions by diminishing those effects. Taste generalizes belief about character by sameness. This categorizes people's character traits based upon just a few characteristics, such as all politicians are liars. Smell generalizes belief about strategies by difference. This causes us to just naturally keep changing our approaches of the way of doing something because it might not have worked the first time. We will say things like, "Oh, I've already tried that, and it doesn't work." Identify your neurological sensory blocks and simple ways to open these blocks and become a greater you. Open your internal pathway to success. Whenever we speak, think, feel, and do, we are communicating through our whole body system. We are holographic. The words we speak, the thoughts we have, the emotions we feel, the behaviors we display all come from the brain, and all of them are connected throughout our entire body through our central nervous system and other body organs and systems. Learning the simple basics of the holographic human map will help you to know the exact sensory area of your blocked or limiting areas, so you can address these and overcome your limitations and blocks. There are many approaches to change and growth in our lives. Like any other, this takes consistency of application. Holographic human transformation theory is an approach which will assist you in becoming more you are truly able to see. We are all incredible beings. No one is born to suffer and be miserable in life. Each being has great potential within. Life comes upon us, and we begin to wonder, doubt, and question. Whether this approach to life is directed at our worldview or our self-view, we end up getting hurt by this. The human brain surpasses anything man has ever created. Our life experiences are 50% sensory data, and not all of this sensory data is pleasant. In fact, some of it is downright horrible and has hurt people for years of their life. Doing the holographic human primary questioning process based upon your personality sensory firing order can help to open the sensory blocks. Doing this questioning process repetitively for as long as you are able, up to 30 minutes at a time, is a good start. Begin by taking a problem statement such as, "I have a hard time feeling open in my relationships." From this, start by asking the primary question for your first sense fired. Taking the answer from this question, ask the primary question for your second sense fired. Taking the answer from this question, ask the primary question for the third sense fired. Taking the answer from this question, ask the primary question for the fourth sense fired. Taking the answer from this question, ask the primary question for the fifth sense fired. Taking the answer from this question, ask the primary question for the sixth sense fired. Keep repeating this process over the length of time that you are able to repeat the process. It is great if you can get this questioning order process to the point of repetition that you actually begin to think and speak in this order. The repetition of doing this question order process forces the subconscious to begin to fire through the blocked senses and begin to open these blocks up for conscious access. When you ask the primary question, be sure to base the next primary question upon the answer from the prior question. Even if the answer to the prior question is, I don't know, then the next primary question, if it is why, then ask, why is it you don't know? Idealist firing order. 1. Sound, reference, value, and meaning, what? 2. Touch, decision, relationships, who? 3. Taste, motivator, character, how? 4. Sight, reference, ideas, reason, and concept, why? 5. Smell, decision, strategies, where? 6. Energy, motivator, action, and intuition, which? Conceptualist firing order. 1. Sight, reference, ideas, reason, and concept, why? 2. Smell, decision, strategies, where? 3. Energy, motivator, action, and intuition, which? 4. Sound, reference, value, and meaning, what? 5. Touch, decision, relationships, who? 6. Taste, motivator, character, how? Relationalist firing order. 1. Touch, reference, relationships, who? 2. Taste, decision, character, how? Sound, motivator, value, and meaning, what? 4. Energy, reference, action, and intuition, which? 5. Sight, decision, ideas, reasons, and concepts, why? 6. Smell, motivator, strategies, where? Actionist firing order. 1. Energy, reference, action, and intuition, which? 2. Sight, decision, ideas, reasons, and concepts, why? 3. Smell, motivator, strategies, where? 4. Touch, reference, relationships, who? 5. Taste, decision, character, how? 6. Sound, motivator, value, and meaning, what? Functionist firing order. 1. Taste, reference, character, how? 2. Sound, decision, value, and meaning, what? 3. Touch, motivator, relationships, who? 4. Smell, reference, strategies, where? 5. Energy, decision, action, and intuition, which? 6. Sight, motivator, ideas, reasons, and concepts, why? Strategist firing order. 1. Smell, reference, strategies, where? 2. Energy, decision, action, and intuition, which? 3. Sight, motivator, ideas, reasons, and concepts, why? 4. Taste, reference, character, how? 5. Sound, decision, value, and meaning, what? 6. Touch, motivator, relationships, who? Generally, using the primary question process is regarding a problem state. However, you can also do this questioning process regarding a goal statement. If you use this holographic human questioning process for a goal you desire to attain, make sure your goal statement is worded right for the subconscious to find the data to help you attain the goal. Do not use addictive words, want, need, or gotta have. Do not use the word try or but. Examples of goal statements to assist the subconscious in understanding all you are seeking from it. I am working on completing my schooling and having a 3.5 grade average. I am seeking to pay all of my debt off in 2 years. Make sure your goal statement does not sound as though you have already accomplished this goal. The subconscious literally doesn't perceive, evaluate, judge, nor decide anything. It just receives, processes, stores, and transmits data. We all have our sensory blocks created from our life's experiences. Whether our sensory experiences are of a positive or a negative nature, we all have sensory blocks in our subconscious programs and models. A sensory block just means that the function, data compressions, elements, and even the sensory experience itself can be harder to access consciously or even be consciously aware of. This access and conscious awareness can vary based upon the degree or severity of the sensory block. These blocked senses and the programs are created by a combination of the sensory experience itself and our conscious response to the sensory experience. Sensory experiences such as sound, loud noises, or angry words, sight, seeing frightening, scary things, touch, being physically abused, energy, experiencing negative actions or intuitions, emotions, taste, negative characteristic traits having a physical effect of self or others, smell, being physically affected by your own or someone else's strategies. The conscious response to these experiences is a key factor in whether or not a block is created. This is the reason some people can experience verbal, emotional, and physical abuse and still be successful individuals, while most others have many blocks to their abilities to succeed at even simple things. These blocks are the source of problems our entire life, our experiences both personal and professional and on all levels. Because of the significance of our sensory data and the programs, models, and functions they are used for to make us whole beings, just a simple block in any of these sensory program models can make our relationships naturally dysfunctional, values and meanings hurtful to self and others, no access to ideas or reason or negative ideas and reason. Very poor judge of character, and not being open at all to new or different processes of doing things, strategies. These limitations can obviously cause repeated problems in our lives that we keep blaming on others and try to run away from. The problem really, all along, has been in us, simply based upon our programming from the sensory data in our environment, along with our positive or negative conscious response, our thoughts, feelings, and doings about the sensory data. This conscious response ends up being just a subconscious program, and we just go along with it, believing the response to be our own identity. And we have bought into this most all of our lives. Learn to identify your mental, emotional, and physical sensory blocks. As shown on the holographic human map, the areas indicating the sense location, its function, and the three major data compression programs listed also position and gesture in reference to these locations if there is a sensory block located in that sense. When a person is thinking or talking about any problem that they are not aware of, the cause for the problem, their gesture and positioning will be the area on the map where the answer is located. If a person says, for example, "I do not know the answer," though they move their left hand or arm, then the answer is as indicated on the map on the left side between the shoulder and the hip area. The answer is in the sense of energy and has to do with actions and or intuitions. It is objective and has been distorted by diminishing or minimizing it, and it is an emotional issue. When you become familiar enough with the firing orders and the body map to know your own and others' firing orders, you will also know if the blocked sense is of a worldview or self-view. The blocks are even gestured to or positioned in. The senses of sound and sight are mental thought issues, touch and energy are emotional issues, and taste and smell are physical issues. Practice identifying your own and others' sensory blocks regarding aspects of you and your life that you have struggled with. Practice with areas of your life you would like to be more successful in. Always have the person stand to read their body language. Examples of aspects of struggles: difficult time expressing self, feel awkward speaking in front of a group, not good with numbers and words, hard to approach someone you're attracted to, take offense easily. Others say I'm not listening to them, lacking confidence in self. Areas desiring greater success, make more money, do better at my work, be better at business, more spirituality, better in my relationships, focus on my goals more, express my ideas better, be more creative. The location in your sensory firing order and this effect on your conscious experience, your perception of life. Depending on the firing order and the sense that it is blocked, you have less than zero access to every function and process in your firing pattern. You might only have half of your reference, decision, or motivation ability and half of your world or self-view. All of these things are just subconscious nature of structuring, creating patterns and processes for program models for every aspect of your entire being. You can never be whole with sensory blocks. The specific internal effect these have on your processing of information, creating programs and models. Every aspect and element of our being is subconscious programs and models made from sensory data and processed, stored, and accessed by the subconscious. Our identity, personality, beliefs, emotion, responses, everything is created, stored, and accessed as subconscious programmings. When we have sensory blocks, not only do we have access to less of what we already know, the programs and models themselves are of a negative nature. Everything has opposite, and just as your experience could have been positive or negative, your conscious response has the same choice. With blocks throughout the program, every other aspect of our whole becomes overwhelmed and dysfunctional. Sensory blocks are important to identify and change. Being blocked out of a program makes it impossible to fix anything about the program. You must first be able to access it. Sensory blocks are in different degrees of severity, and this affects the sensory firing order. This, in turn, affects the conscious capability and experiences. All program models created in the brain that we operate from are created over a period of time and compounding in repetitions. It is this process of repeating over time which causes the degree or severity of the sensory blocks. The longer and more often that a sensory experience repeats itself and the duration of time in which it continues, the stronger the block becomes. Like anything else in life that continues to happen with no resolve, change, or attempts to correct it, will just naturally continue in the negative growth. These different degrees of severity of blocks have a large individual effect on the way we think, feel, and do. Our ability to respond, to accomplish our goals in life, to maybe even have life goals are all very interrelative and interdependent upon our sensory firing order. Everyone has sensory blocks of some kind and to some degree. Without these blocks, we would be more open to new thought, new feelings, and new doing. Without sensory blocks, our personality, intelligence, our emotional and behavioral responses would be constantly changing because we could be constantly growing and learning from life's experiences. With sensory blocks, we are constantly held back, discouraged, frightened, depressed, fearful, humiliated, and limited in limitless ways from reaching our full potential, let alone changing. Levels of sensory blocks, their degrees and effect on our natural man experience. Minor block, the central nervous system can still fire through this area, but the next sense fired in the sensory firing order actually processes the blocked sense higher functions, data compressions, elements through its own functions. This process is the least harmful and limiting of any of the sensory blocks, and yet looked closely on the holographic human map and the effects on our human abilities makes life a great challenge. The senses in their natural firing order with a minor block in one of its senses still continues through the firing order, but over a period of time the sense fired after the blocked sense becomes overloaded and dysfunctional as well. If, for example, the sense with the block is sight and the sense after sight is smell, all the functions, data compressions, and elements of sight is actually processed by the sense of smell based upon the functions, data compressions, and elements of smell. So the sense of smell does its own functions, datas, elements, and then based still upon these processes, sights, functions, datas, and elements. Major block. The CNS cannot fire through this neuroblock, and this causes the firing sequence to backfire through the firing order to the first sense fired again. Depending upon the specific sensory firing order with the major block to the sensory data, everything can go good for the conscious experience until the blocked sense is hit, then the CNS backfires. This literally means that all the data and its functions and such in less than 0.22 of a second goes back through the data, and gets the opposite, either negative or positive, of the data, and ends where the firing order began at. So if it's the fifth sense, its firing order is first, second, third, and fourth. Backfires of the fifth sense and goes back fourth, third, second, first sense, and thinks it's completed. Conscious experience of this is to begin to think one thought, then shift to an opposite of the same prior thought. This is a microsecond process of 0.22 of a second, and unless conscious knows about the process again, we just think it's just us. This also means that any sensory data stored beyond the major block is never accessed at all for any conscious use. This, in return, again means that all functions, elements, programs, models from any blocked senses are missing in the whole of the individual in a microsecond. Complex block. The CNS actually misfires and crosses over our neurology to the opposite side of our CNS and therefore physical body. As you can see on the map example, a complex block literally causes the central nervous system to fire to the opposite of the body and the sensory data located on the opposite side. This crossover firing also affects the other senses in the firing order, which may not even be accessed with all their functions, elements, programs, and models they offer to make us whole. The firing orders continue from the crossover point, and only the senses from that sense forward are accessed. Synthesis is when two opposite senses have compacted a complex. When senses have combined parts or elements as to form a whole sense, this is a complex. The complexion of different senses combines the diverse functions and data compression programs of different senses into a coherent whole. The subconscious doesn't recognize wrong or right. It is a master computer program and continues its functions unaware of any wrong. The brain, the central nervous system, every part of our internal being works together to be a whole. The firing order sequence continues from this location, and we miss a lot of data stored in the other areas. We all experience sensory blocks in our subconscious models and programs. These blocks are created more based upon the individual's conscious response to the sensory data, not just the sensory data itself. Regardless of the positive or negative in the sensory data itself, the perception, evaluation, judgment, and decision of the sensory data will block the data from the sensory firing order. When we access to all the sensory data regarding the different models and programs, we complete the firing order. Completing the firing order lets us have access to answers to our own questions, meanings to our ideas, strategies to our actions and intuitions. As human beings, we function better when we do not have sensory blocks stopping the brain from accessing the data and giving it to the conscious. The conscious experience is very similar from person to person based upon the degree of block and the firing order it's functioning on.